about some of these YouTube videos you sent over about UFOs and government secrets and, like, weaponized physics. It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely a lot of layers to this onion.
It feels like we're trying to piece together a puzzle, and not all the pieces fit. Like, we've got these stories about Foo Fighters from World War II, those weird lights pilots kept seeing.
Right, right.
And the videos claim they could be some early form of weaponized physics. I mean, how do we even start to make sense of that?
Well, some researchers think those Foo Fighters might have been early, probably accidental examples of advanced radar technology messing with the atmosphere.
Okay, so like experimental radar systems with some kind of freaky side effects.
Exactly. Back then, radar was still pretty new, and the videos suggest that if you had a really powerful continuous wave radar, especially hooked up to a massive power source, it could actually ionize the air around it.
Ionize?
Yeah, basically turning the air into a glowing ball of plasma. Think of it like a soup of electrically charged particles, not something you want to be swimming in.
So you're saying those Foo Fighters, they might have just been glowing balls of plasma created by these radars. I gotta admit, that's a lot more believable than swamp gas or weather balloons or whatever. But if that's the case, how do we get from glowing plasma to, like, actual weapons?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The videos talk about this guy, John Burroughs, U.S. Air Force, stationed at RAF Bentwaters back in 1980.
In Waters, that's where the Rendlesham Force thing went down, right?
That's the one. Now, Burroughs, he claimed he saw weird lights, experienced missing time, the whole 9 yards. But get this. After the incident, he started having all these health problems.
Yeah, the videos mentioned heart valve damage, problems with his vision. That's not just some everyday thing. They seem pretty sure these injuries were directly from the encounter.
And this is where they connect it to the weaponized physics idea. The videos claim Burroughs' injuries line up with what you might see with exposure to high-powered radar or plasma.
So they're saying these technologies, if you could control them, could be used to really mess someone up.
Potentially, yeah. And it gets even wilder because the videos then point to this idea of a global race to understand and weaponize this stuff. They name-drop the U.S., UK, Russia, China, the usual suspects.
Makes you wonder what's going on behind closed doors. But if it's as dangerous as they're saying, why all the secrecy? What's the big deal?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we'll definitely dig into. But before we do, there's one more piece of this puzzle we need to talk about. Time dilation.
Time dilation. Okay, now you've got my attention.
It's where things get really weird, like science fiction weird.
Well, now I really can't wait to hear more. This is where we really go down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, buckle up. I mean, time travel, when you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, right? But time dilation, that's the real deal. Straight out of Einstein's theory of relativity.
Okay, full disclosure. Physics and we never really got along. Can you give me a crash course on how this time dilation thing works?
Sure, imagine 2 clocks, exactly the same, totally synced up. One stays here on good old Earth. The other gets strapped to a rocket and blasted off into space. Crazy fast.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Now, Einstein's theory, it says the clock on that spaceship zooming through the cosmos, it's going to start ticking a little slower than the one chilling here on Earth. And the faster that spaceship goes, the bigger the difference in time gets.
So what you're saying is time, it's not this fixed thing.
Nope. Time is relative, my friend. And gravity, it gets in on the act, too. Stick a clock at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, right down close to all that Earth gravity, and it'll tick a tiny bit slower than a clock up on top of Mount Everest, further away from all that pull.
Whoa, okay, my brain's kind of hurting, but I think I get it.
Yeah.
But how does this tie back into all this UFO stuff, these potential weapons?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? These videos, they suggest that some of these UAPs, maybe they're messing with gravity, or maybe they're zipping around at speeds we can't even fathom. And if that's true, well, they could be messing with time, too.
So you're saying someone like John Burroughs, with his missing time at Rendlesham, you think maybe he got caught in some kind of localized time dilation field?
Hey, it's a possibility these videos are throwing out there. And if we're struggling to wrap our heads around the science, just imagine if someone figured out how to actually weaponize it.
It's like something out of a movie, but scarier because it might be real. But even if we put aside the theoretical for a minute, we still have to deal with the potential dangers of the stuff we already know about, like this high-powered radar, the plasma, the directed energy weapons, all of it.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of those potential dangers, the videos draw a parallel between what happened to John Burroughs and other UAP encounters to something you might have heard of, Havana syndrome.
Oh yeah, those diplomats and officials getting sick, right. Headaches, dizziness, even brain damage in some cases. pretty scary stuff.
Exactly. And while no one's 100% sure what causes Savannah syndrome, there are some researchers who think it could be from exposure to certain types of energy, things like pulsed electromagnetic energy or microwave radiation.
You're kidding. So you think these technologies, maybe even the ones connected to UAPs, they could be used to make people sick? Intentionally?
Now, it's a connection the videos are making, and it definitely raises some serious questions about how these technologies might be used in the wrong hands.
I mean, we've gone through a lot today. Glowing plasma, time travel, weaponized physics. It's kind of hard to know what to even think about it all.
It's definitely a lot to process, and it's important to remember, like, we're dealing with some pretty out there stuff here. The videos, they're interesting, but we got to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
You're right. Extraordinary claims, right? You need extraordinary evidence.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes in, you know? The videos, they talk about these FOIA requests, people asking for information, and the government's like, nope, sorry, national security, and that just makes people more suspicious.
Yeah, I get that. It's like the less they tell us, the more we think they're hiding something, and the whole thing just keeps spiraling.
Right. It creates this vacuum where rumors and speculation can run wild.
It's tough, you know? You want to be open-minded, but you also don't want to be gullible. But I gotta say, even if we take everything in these videos with a grain of salt, we're still left with some pretty unsettling questions. I mean, are we really talking about a future where we're messing with gravity and time to fight wars?
It's a wild thought, isn't it? And it's not just the technology itself, it's the ethics of it all. If we're talking about weapons that could potentially manipulate time or gravity, I mean, the risks are almost unimaginable.
It's like we're opening Pandora's box here, and we might not like what's inside.
Exactly. And that's why these conversations, they're so important. We can't just ignore these issues and hope they go away. We need to be talking about them, debating them, figuring out where the line is, and making sure we don't cross it.
So where do we go from here? What can people do?
Honestly, I think it starts with being aware. Having conversations like this, being curious, but also being critical. Don't just take anything you see online at face value. Dig a little deeper, ask questions, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
I like it. So to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep exploring and keep looking beyond the everyday, because you never know what you might find.
I would have been on top of the charts, but it's politics. You do some gimmick shit and post, you get a lot of clicks. Drop some real shit and they probably won't acknowledge it.